You may have seen that the last video that I put up talking about the sickness that I had and sort of the status of things got completely wiped off the map and censored by YouTube. And that's just crazy. The little notice that they give you says that you were giving out misinformation in violation of World Health Organization medical policies or some other crap like that. I appealed it and said I wasn't giving out medical information in the first place, but legal information. And isn't that just a crazy Orwellian place that we find ourselves in at this point, where we can't even share legal information? I mean, it's absolutely nuts. But really, if you check the website, thecivilrightslawyer.com, you'll see the same information that I tried to convey. Now, the other thing that happened that I'll go ahead and discuss now is that yesterday, a federal judge in New York blocked New York State's mandate. And this was a federal lawsuit that was filed by lawyers from the Thomas More Society. And I put the 200 pages of the complaint up on the website at thecivilrightslawyer.com so you can review it. But it is a challenge to the New York State mandate for the you-know-what. And it's, as plaintiffs, it has a bunch of medical professionals, highly qualified doctors, nurses, that sort of thing. And they're listed under pseudonyms for obvious reasons, because just look what happened to my last video. You can't share information, you can't raise questions, you can't have a conversation, you can't object to anything. So they're operating under pseudonyms wisely, probably, and asked the federal court to declare, or actually asked the federal court to find unconstitutional the New York State mandate. And so this is in the healthcare context. And as I've discussed before, that is really the most difficult area right now, is the healthcare setting. Even, I believe, DeSantis's deal in Florida, where he made it illegal for private companies to mandate the you-know-what, I believe that there is a healthcare exception. So the healthcare arena is probably the most difficult place to try to save people's jobs who don't want to take the you-know-what. But that is the context of the New York case. So they filed, the basis of their complaint, as was with everything with civil rights, the best way to win is always to attach religion somehow, unfortunately. You're not allowed to just get an exception from the you-know-what because you've analyzed the research, you've analyzed your medical history, your diagnoses, and you've made a rational decision about what's best for you or what's best for your family. You're not allowed to do that, but you are allowed, and there is a constitutional requirement that there be religious exemptions. So that is really the basis of what they filed there in New York, is that there is, New York State's not even giving these employees with their mandate a religious exemption. And the federal court yesterday, I believe, issued a temporary restraining order, or a TRO, that went ahead and blocked the mandate from taking place for these individuals in New York. However, don't misunderstand, that probably wasn't a decision that was made on the merits of the case, of the allegations of the law, because at that point, there's been no response by the defendants. There's been no hearing on the matter. So that still has to take place. There's going to be a response filed by New York State, by the governor or the attorney general, or both, or whomever. And then there's going to be a hearing in federal court. So it very well may be that after the hearing, after the response, that the federal courts allows it to continue. There's really, I looked at the court order, there's really no way to predict because the court didn't really opine on the underlying facts of that case. But it is something. It is something. And you might wonder, could that happen in West Virginia or could that happen in Kentucky? Here's the problem. In New York, they apparently had this mandate coming from the state government. We don't have that here in West Virginia. In fact, our Attorney General just a few days ago issued a 21-page legal opinion that laid out the case of why, if our state did mandate even state employees to get the you-know-what, that it would be unconstitutional under the federal and the state constitutions, and in particular, the state constitution, because state constitutions are allowed to provide greater protections than the federal constitution. And there is case law in West Virginia that says that our due process clause is actually more protective than the federal due process clause. And so due process is generally what you're trying to get at for the right to make your own medical decisions, for instance, bodily autonomy, bodily integrity. And that's where all the abortion stuff comes from, is the due process clause, life, liberty, that sort of thing. So our Attorney General made out a good case of why that would be unconstitutional, particularly under our state constitution, under our state case law. So I'm pretty confident that if the state of West Virginia tried to do a mandate, that we could challenge it and get it stopped here in West Virginia. I don't know that for a fact, but I think what's holding them off here, because our governor is somebody who likes to issue mandates. He hasn't gone there. I think one of the reasons that he hasn't gone there perhaps is because of our Attorney General has sort of issued this shot across the bow, a warning letter, and just laying out the basis for a challenge to that. And that really mirrors a lot of the litigation strategy that I've been promoting and arguing about. So I don't think we're going to see that in West Virginia. If we did, and in other red or quasi-red states, but New York is obviously not that. So you have just an outright mandate coming from the state government, and so that's what was challenged. And they're not apparently making any exceptions for disability, healthcare, or religion, and that is going to be the basis into which to beat these things. Because unfortunately, like it or not, restrictions on religion is really sometimes almost the only way that we can win back any of our freedoms. But that, in my opinion, that remains really the big option available to people right now, whether they're public employees or private employees who have been mandated to get the you-know-what, is to apply for a religious exemption. And if you check the website, the civilrightslawyer.com, I've posted the complaint that the Thomas More Society filed in New York. And the reason I bring that up is it has all the exhibits. So if you're a Christian, for instance, it has all sorts of documentation about what the basis is for a religious exception, for why these doctors don't want to take the you-know-what, and whether or not those are actually truly held beliefs that you've always had. That there's your option right there. If you truly do want to avoid taking the you-know-what. Again, this is legal information. This is not medical information, not medical advice in any way. I hope even this doesn't get censored. It's just crazy. It's the civil rights lawyer talking about civil rights law. And I've talked to our Attorney General here in West Virginia, and it sounds like multiple attorney generals are, probably some of the same attorney generals that you saw get involved in the 2020 election. are going to mount some sort of federal challenge to the mandates that came out from Biden the other day. And I think there's a really good chance that that is going to be successful, that they're going to be able to successfully stop Biden's mandates that are going through OSHA. However, here's the potential issue. The case is stronger for employees of companies. It's supposed to apply to companies who have 100 or more employees. And forgive me, I'm still getting over the you-know-what. Still a little bit of a brain fog, and I've been told this lasts a month or so bear with me. But the case for the private employees that fall under Biden's mandate, the case is strong. And why is that? Just basic constitutional law, because the federal government is, supposed to be a government of enumerated powers under our Constitution, whereas the state governments are the governments of general power, general jurisdiction, who have the basic police powers, all the powers not specifically enumerated to the federal government. And again, those are your police powers, and that's what all these emergency powers, these mandates that we've been fighting, have fallen under. Is that's what they argue when you sue them, that these are our state police powers, our emergency powers that governors across the country are have the right to wield. So there's really no argument that the federal government has a right to wield those powers to enact emergency mandates, whether it be masks or the injecting you-know-whats. That, you didn't see President Trump try to enact any federal mandates like that. And one of the reasons is because it would be completely unconstitutional. But, similar to how Obama really didn't care eventually that it was unconstitutional to get involved with, to enact immigration legislation via executive order, you're not going to see Biden care about whether or not he's violating the principles of federalism, whether he's violating the federal separation of powers. He just doesn't care. And go ahead, try to stop me. And so I think that the attorney generals are going to do that. I think they will be successful in stopping him in regards to the private employees. The question remains is whether they're going to attempt to, and if they do, whether they're successful in protecting any of the federal employees and contractors who are subject to Biden's attempt at mandating through executive order, through OSHA. That's really kind of what I'm most worried about, and I'm really heavily researching that issue. And the federal employees and contractors that I've talked to, it doesn't sound like they've been given any information about whether or not they can apply for religious exemptions. They're having to go and proactively search for a way to put in for these. So I would urge you to, if you're in that position or your loved one is in that position, to research that. Because if there's a way to beat it or a way to avoid it, that's probably going to be the most effective way. So hopefully I can get back to doing some live videos. I have some updates on pending cases, things like that. My internet connection here at this office has been awful. I might be at my other office with better internet here the next day or so maybe I can get to a live video. In any event, thanks for watching, and you can send contact questions to my email at jhb@johnbryanlaw.com. Again, the website, you can find all this there, thecivilrightslawyer.com.